It doesn't resemble what it used to.
Welcome to Then and Now, the series that brings Toronto's past back to life. I am Morgan Cameron Ross. Today we're talking about the history of Toronto's Regent Park.
Regent Park is right here, but it's an area very much in flux. If you look now, you will see towers galore, but most people will remember it looking like this. We call it Regent Park, but it started out actually as simply the southern part of Cabbagetown. What we think of as Cabbagetown now was actually much bigger. Regent Park was constructed in the late 1940s as a public housing development. The hundreds of houses that occupied the area prior were some of the oldest in Toronto. But in the early part of the 20th century, it was composed primarily of newly arrived immigrants who faced many hurdles. Here are some photos of the neighborhood prior to it being raised. And here are some photos of when the housing project was being built. Here is an aerial view of the area in 1947. And now. Now let's look at 1983. And now. Regent Park was meant to be a jumping off point for the newly arrived, but that was nothing new for the area. Even when it was Cabbagetown, the area housed many of the newly arriving groups. Starting in the 1960s, though, Canada's immigration policies loosened, leading to the changing of demographics residing in Regent Park, the Caribbean community, certain Asian countries, and others. The public housing format, though, is a controversial one. Here is how it was being presented in 1953 when the area was new.
Just a drop in the bucket, of course. Just one corner of one city. There are other Kellys and Browns in corners of all our cities. Too many. Too many Oak Streets for a rich, resourceful nation. But one has gone for good.
The vibrant community of Regent Park has struggled in some ways and thrived in others. The layout of the complexes, though, architecturally, led to some of the difficulties. The buildings were constructed to be independent of the neighborhood, which from the beginning caused tensions between the developments and the neighboring areas. But the city also failed in other ways. The majority of the buildings were built in the 1950s, but as of the early to mid-1960s, the buildings were already falling into disrepair. The Toronto Community Housing Corporation often has faced criticism about the level of care they provide to public housing. Starting in the early 2000s, decisions were made to raise the area and construct mixed-income properties. So, look around there right now. It's remarkably different from even a decade ago. Will this format work? Time will only tell, but the resiliency of the community is strong. The pride of being from Regent Park can be seen in many different ways. Take, for instance, the Regent Park Film Festival.
That's it for this episode of Then and Now. I'm Morgan Cameron Ross. Catch you next time on Narcity.